Have you ever wondered why it feels like the country is more divided than ever? Well, a huge part of the answer lies in one shocking number: 22%. That is how many Americans say they trust the federal government to do the right thing most of the time. 22%. That's not just low, it's one of the lowest levels ever recorded in over 50 years of surveys. It's a statistic that explains so much about our current political climate, from gridlock in Washington to the anger you see on social media. So today, we're going to unpack this collapse in trust. Where did it come from? What's keeping it so low? And most importantly, what does it mean for the future of the United States? It's hard to imagine now, but there was a time when Americans had deep faith in their government. Back in the 1950s and 60s, trust levels were consistently above 70%. Think about it. The country was building massive interstate highways, sending astronauts to the moon with NASA, and lifting a generation into the middle class with the GI Bill. These were huge, ambitious projects that showed a government that could get big things done. Bipartisan cooperation wasn't a fantasy, it was just how things worked. People believed that for the most part, the government was working for them. So what happened? How did we get from over 70% trust to just 22%? The decline didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, painful erosion punctuated by major national traumas. The first big hit was the Vietnam War. The government told the public the war was winnable, but the reality on the ground and the images on TV told a different story. This created a massive credibility gap. Then came Watergate, a scandal that reached the highest office in the land, proving that leaders could be corrupt and dishonest. It was a devastating blow to public confidence. The 1970s brought economic misery with stagflation, high inflation, and high unemployment, and many felt the government was powerless to fix it. Fast forward to the 21st century. The intelligence failures leading up to the Iraq War deepened public skepticism. Then, the 2008 financial crisis hit. Millions of Americans lost their homes and savings, while the banks that caused the crisis got bailed out. The perception was clear. The system protects the powerful, not ordinary people. And most recently, the COVID-19 pandemic. The conflicting messages, the political infighting, and the chaotic response left many feeling that the government was completely overwhelmed and incompetent. Each of these events was like a crack in the foundation of public trust, and over decades, those cracks have grown into a chasm. So that's the history. But what's keeping trust so low today? It's not just one thing, it's a perfect storm of systemic problems. First, there's hyperpolarization. We're not just disagreeing on policy anymore. We're living in completely different realities. We get our news from different sources. We talk to different people. And we start to see the other political side not just as wrong, but as a genuine threat to the country. This makes compromise impossible. Then there's staggering economic inequality. When millions of people are working harder but falling further behind, while a tiny few at the top are seeing their wealth explode, it's natural to conclude that the system is rigged. People feel like the government is working for corporations and wealthy donors, not for them. And honestly, it's hard to argue when you see the constant gridlock in Congress. They can't seem to pass budgets or solve major problems, leading to government shutdowns and a constant image of incompetence. This dysfunction is broadcast 24/7 across a fragmented media landscape, where every outlet offers its own spin, reinforcing our existing beliefs and deepening the divides. Add a steady diet of political scandals, and you have a recipe for permanent distrust. So, who are the least trusting? Well, the data is pretty clear. Younger Americans, those between 18 and 29, have the lowest trust levels of any age group. They've grown up in an era of constant crisis and political failure, so it's really all they've ever known. Trust also swings wildly depending on who's in the White House. When one party is in power, trust among their supporters goes up a bit, while trust from the opposition party craters. It's become a partisan issue. Lower-income households also show significantly less trust, which makes sense given the feeling that the economic system isn't working for them. There are also racial disparities, with different groups trusting certain institutions more or less, based on their historical experiences with the government. This is where it gets really serious. What happens when a country stops trusting its own government? The consequences are huge. First, civic participation collapses. People stop voting, they stop volunteering. and they disengage from their communities because they feel like it doesn't make a difference. This creates a vacuum, and what fills that void? Conspiracy theories. When people don't trust official sources, they search for alternative explanations, and those are often darker and more divisive. This lack of trust makes it nearly impossible to solve our biggest national problems. How can you pass meaningful climate policy if half the country believes it's a hoax pushed by a corrupt government? How do you reform healthcare or education when there is no consensus or faith in the institutions that would have to implement those reforms? It even affects our ability to respond to public health emergencies. Low trust paralyzes us. Ultimately, this leads to national fragmentation. A country can dysfunction if a vast majority of its citizens believe their own government is either incompetent or actively working against them. This isn't just a political problem, it's a threat to our stability and our future. But here's a fascinating wrinkle that often gets missed in this conversation. While trust in the government as a whole is in the basement, Americans actually do trust certain parts of it. For example, trust in the military is consistently high. People also have relatively high confidence in institutions they interact with directly, like the Social Security Administration and even the US Postal Service. Where is trust the absolute lowest? Congress. People see it as the epicenter of gridlock, partisan fighting, and corruption. Trust in the presidency rises and falls with who is in office, but Congress is universally disliked. This nuance is critical. People don't hate everything the government does, they hate the political system that runs it. And that brings us to the root cause of this crisis, the one that politicians on both sides don't really want to admit. The core of the problem is a profound feeling of powerlessness. A huge majority of Americans, from all political stripes, believe the system is not responsive to them. They feel that their voices are drowned out by powerful special interests, by corporate lobbyists, by massive campaign donations, and by the wealthy elite. They see a government that listens to donors, not to voters. This isn't a fringe belief anymore. It's a mainstream conviction held by Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike. It's the unifying theory of American discontent. People don't feel represented, and when you don't feel represented, you don't trust the system. So, why does all of this matter so much for America's future? Simply put, a democracy cannot survive long-term without the consent and trust of the governed. When trust disappears, the basic social contract breaks down. The polarization we see every day isn't just unpleasant, it creates real instability. Economic growth also suffers. Businesses are less likely to invest and take risks in a country where the political system is unstable and the rules can change on a whim. Societal cohesion frays. We stop seeing each other as fellow citizens with a shared destiny and start seeing each other as enemies. This isn't just a talking point for cable news. It's a national security issue and a fundamental economic threat. One of the most frustrating parts of this whole situation is how confused we are about it. Most people tend to blame the problem entirely on the other side. They think if only the other party would see reason, everything would be fine. We vastly underestimate how powerful and sophisticated disinformation campaigns are at deliberately deepening these divisions. And we fail to realize that this isn't just a problem for one group. Trust is collapsing for everyone, across the political spectrum. We're all in this sinking boat together, but we're too busy blaming each other for the leak to start bailing water. Restoring trust is the central challenge of our time. It won't be easy, but understanding the depth of the problem is the first step. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the issues shaping our world. See you next time.